But we're going to start with New York Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner. Congressman, thank you for joining us. So let's take a look at what happened. The point of the debate is a $7.4 billion bill that would extend and improve health care benefits for 9/11 first responders. Democrats, however, employed a procedural move that blocked Republicans from offering amendments. That move meant the bill required a two-thirds vote for approval, 290 votes in this case, rather than a simple majority. The bill was defeated 255 to 159. Just 12 Republicans voted for the measure. Congressman, here's, of course, what you said on the House floor during the debate yesterday.
We see it in the United States Senate every single day where members say, we want amendments, we want debate, we want amendment, but we're still a no. And then we stand up and say, oh, if only we had a different process, we'd vote yes. You vote yes if you believe yes. You vote in favor of something if you believe it's the right thing. If you believe it's the wrong thing, you vote no. We are following a procedure. I will not yield to the gentleman, and the gentleman will observe regular order. The gentleman will observe regular order. Gentleman thinks if he gets up and yells on it, if he's going to intimidate people into believing he's right, he is wrong. The gentleman is wrong. The gentleman is providing cover for his colleagues rather than doing the right thing. It's Republicans wrapping their arms around Republicans rather than doing the right thing on behalf of the heroes. It is a shame, a shame. If you believe this is a bad idea to provide health care, then vote no. But don't give me the cowardly view that, oh, if it was a different procedure, the gentleman will observe regular order and sit down. I will not. The gentleman will sit. The gentleman is correct in sitting. I will not.
This is quite obviously not in order.
Gentleman will suspend.
I will not stand here
Gentleman is recognized.
and listen to my colleagues say, oh, if only I had a different procedure that allows us to stall, and then vote no. Instead of standing up and defending your colleagues and voting no on this humane bill, you should urge them to vote yes, something the gentleman has not done.
Congressman, I'm going to ask, first I want to start with the anger, or some might say theatrics. Do you regret maybe pounding so much? It's one thing to be upset about what happened on the floor. Do you regret your tone or anything you said yesterday, or the yelling back and forth that took place?
Well, let me say this, Chuck. In fairness, that clip should have been put in a little bit of context. I had spoken, as so many of my colleagues had, on the Democratic side of the aisle, and we didn't make any reference to the Republicans. We didn't make any reference to the politics of this. We talked about what should be focused on, which is the 9/11 responders who 9 years after the fact are sick and dying. Over 900 of them have died since September 11th from 9/11-related illnesses. But right before I got up to speak, my colleague, Mr. King, stood up, who's a sponsor of the bill, and spent almost his entire statement ripping the Democrats, using words like cowardly and lacking courage, and making this about a process. And frankly, that's what set me off, and that's why I thought we needed to respond, because frankly, the Republicans have now, as you know, over the course of the last couple of years, this has been their strategy. They say, oh, we like the bill, but we don't like the way you're doing it. We don't like the style. We don't like the time, how many pages you're using. So that's what I was responding to.
I want to talk about this process, because this is what frustrates, I think, a lot of folks in Middle America, independents who are maybe angry at everybody right now, why Congress has a 11% approval rating. They'll sit there and say, okay, on one hand, when they find out you guys were going for this two-thirds majority, you could have allowed them to introduce an amendment which would have possibly tied it up, and you guys were fearing the, quote, poison pill vote, that they would have tied it to maybe spending money out of another budget hole. I guess my point is, the fear was, on one hand, you guys were worried they were going to pull a procedural trick, and they are upset because you pulled a procedural trick. And you see why everybody in the middle gets so upset at Congress these days.
Yeah, but frankly, you're overthinking it, and they're spinning it. The fact is, we needed 21 additional Republicans. We only got 12. 21 additional Republicans, and this bill passes. The suspension calendar is made for non-controversial things, and this was about as non-controversial as you're going to get, in that we had 94% of a very diverse Democratic caucus vote for this. The only reasons the Republicans voted against it, and listen, there were some there that were saying things like, oh, we don't, people die all the time, we can't provide care for everyone. There's some people complaining about the pay for. But what happened was Peter King and others made this about politics. And once they did, Republicans retreated to their corner and wouldn't vote for this thing. So you're overthinking it about the process. We had more than enough support if we only had 21 additional Republicans. We only had 12 Republicans vote for health care for 9/11 responders. Congress. That's mind-bogglingly hard to believe.
Are you at all frustrated with your own Democratic leadership, who might have been able to find some sort of, even if it's not a middle ground, a two-thirds ground, that would have found those other 21, and maybe, or you decided not to use the two-thirds move here?
No, the problem is this is the Republican tactic. We see it in the Senate all the time. We just had a small business bill in the Senate where every time the Republicans said we want this change to the bill, Senator Reid gave it to Senator McConnell. The entire list was done. They said we're still against it. For 9 years we've watched this tactic, first when they were in the majority and now when they're in the minority. My constituents maybe say something different than your viewers do. They say, you know what, if you bring the thing to a vote. I argued this about the public option, for example.
Right.
For too often people get tied in knots about procedural things when what the American people want is for us to stand up. And unfortunately, when that time came, the Republicans almost to a person voted against 9/11 health, and that's what angered me so much.
And let's talk about the pay-for aspect, because that is, as you brought up, there were some Republicans that were upset about how this was getting paid for. Is there any way there could have been some wiggle room on this, finding another pot of money to do this, or tying it somewhere else, or maybe making it so that you extended the compensation fund, say, to 2020, and then took a look at this again?
Well, if I thought that it got us additional votes or less grandstanding or less maneuvering to try to defeat this thing, we're open to anything. Look, we're going to come back. I'm not going to give up on this. This is 9 years later. We've got to provide health care for these people. This is not about me or Peter King or Democrat or Republican.
Right.
There are literally neighbors that I have. I have a worker, an employee named Ed, who every day is coughing his lungs out because he was a 9/11 police officer. So we're going to try to fix this. The problem is here, Chuck, is that every time we as Democrats, we have so much fidelity to trying to go through this process. Every time we sit down, we get burned. We saw it on the stimulus bill. We saw it on health care. We saw it in the Senate just about every single day. And last night we saw it on the House floor on 9/11 health.
You've been very critical, I think, sometimes of the Obama White House on this. Do you feel like sometimes they lack a party backbone, an ideological backbone in some of these fights?
I don't know. Listen, I'm fighting with Republicans enough today. I don't think I want to quarrel with the president.
No, I'm not trying to bait you.
But here's what I do think. Here's what I do think. I think sometimes as Democrats, we come into knife fights carrying library books. And that sometimes what you've got to do is try to get the votes to pass the thing. Make people stand up. We saw yesterday in an entire congressional delegation on the Republican side, only 12 members who stood up for this concept. And I worked my tail off with my Democratic colleagues, just about all of us. We only lost 4 Democrats in a very diverse caucus. I think that sometimes we've got to realize the Republicans are not going to deal with us. Now, I'm still going to work every single day. Peter King and I are having a rough patch in our relationship. I will admit that. However, we have to try to get this done, and we're going to try every means we can. But the Republicans, they're the party of no, and this time they seem to have hit a new low.
All right, library books to a knife fight. That is a new one. That'll be one that people will quote a lot. Congressman Weiner.
Don't steal it on me, Chuck.
No, it's all yours. Congressman Anthony Weiner, thanks for joining us on Hardball.
Thank you.